Hi, I'm Michael. I'm from Dyslexia Improvements, and I'm here to tell you what's happening with dyslexia in Australia. A lot of you from around the world are not familiar with what's happening in Australia, and there are things that we could be doing better. I hope you can learn from us. Firstly, Australia is known as the land of the brave, the land where people will conquer battles, they'll take things on, and where people are known for being innovative. But in the dyslexia field, it really hasn't been like that for quite some time. In Australia, we've been anything but brave and anything but innovative. One of the first things I'd like to see different in Australia is I'd love to see schools that have teachers who are well trained to know how to pick when a child has dyslexia and to know what a child with dyslexia actually needs. At the moment, what we've got is teachers in Australia, they can see that kids are struggling. They haven't been trained to recognise what are some pretty straightforward signs that kids have dyslexia, and they also haven't been trained in what to do to make it easier for those kids if they do have dyslexia. At the moment, schools hide a bit behind paperwork and they'll say, oh, your child has dyslexia, fill out these forms, go and see these experts over here, we're not really equipped to help you. And we're hiding behind process instead of tackling things head on, instead of having the courage to say, I'm not certain what's going on, but here's what it looks like and here's what you could be doing at home, here's what we're going to do at school. Something else that I'd like to see in Australia change would be that we should be using the tools at our disposal more. There are so many tools we could be using in schools and at home. Things like Dragon software, I use it all the time. I can type probably about triple the speed that other teachers type at just because I've got this software. It records my voice through a headset into text. It took a while to train it, but it was well worth the expense. There's other tools including things like ClaroView, which changes the background color of your screen. A child with dyslexia who's having trouble reading from white could be using that software. I don't understand why these things aren't standard. There doesn't even seem to be a very thorough understanding among Australian teachers that fluorescent lighting is hurting our kids with dyslexia. And if 1 in 10 of our kids have dyslexia and the fluorescent lighting is hurting them, then we've got to be more reliant on natural light coming in through windows. We need to do basic things like lift up the blinds. And ideally, I'd love to see those fluorescent lights disappear and be replaced by yellow light or natural light. Something else that's worth noting is that even the bare minimum, the absolute basics, aren't being done in a lot of schools. The basics of have your child with dyslexia reading in bold font, have them read double spaced, have them reading large font, and definitely have them on some other colour, not white. White is just disastrous for kids with dyslexia. In Australia, the public awareness of dyslexia is pretty much going downhill. If you look at the Google searches for dyslexia, they're about half of what they were a couple of years ago. So people aren't really talking about it, people aren't really conscious of it, and therefore they're certainly not going out of their way to help kids with dyslexia. I don't know what it's like in your country, but in my country there's a lot of division among the dyslexia community. People get attached to their brand of helping dyslexia. And I'm not going to go mentioning the brands, but instead of sort of getting together and going, we should unite and sort of be a voice that has an impact on our culture to help our kids with dyslexia, instead of that being the case, we're all attached to our brand and I'm not really part of anyone's brand, but I look at what's going on, I can see the best in all these different areas. We could sort of be combining that and working together rather than being sort of, disunified and sort of each trying to protect our own ground. It's not ideal. So we need to build some public awareness. If you ask the average person on the street, what is the story with dyslexia? What's it all about? They'll generally tell you it's a spelling issue of people can't spell or they get letters around the wrong way. They're missing the point. The real thing that's driving the problems with dyslexia is that the words are moving on the page when kids are trying to read. If we could get around that, a lot of the other things would fall into place. It's certainly not to be relegated to some spelling issue or something like that. It's much more serious. And more than just knowing what dyslexia is, we need to change public awareness into how to help kids with dyslexia, because that's really missing in the education that parents and schools have. So I hope your country's different, but if I look at Australia, in some ways it's a bit disillusioning. In other ways it's actually quite healthy. There are pockets where people are actually making an impact, but in some ways I feel quite disappointed about what's going on. What we don't need is more talk about dyslexia. I'm not even certain that we need more funding. What we really need is just good training for teachers, quality training available for parents, and between those two areas we should be able to make a big difference in kids' lives. So let's stay positive, let's stay focused on changing what we can change, doing what's within our ability to do. And I'd love to see your comments down the bottom of this page. I'd love you to leave your comments, ask your questions. I'll do my best to answer them, and stay tuned for more of these videos. I've been Michael from dyslexiaimprovements.com, and I would love to hear of any other ways that I can create helpful videos for you.